Hey everyone, welcome to Pearls of Eden. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to continue on talking about boundaries, relationships, discernment that can only be given through the Holy Spirit. We're going to talk about these things because in this day and age, we understand that there is a lot of exposure going on, but how would Jesus handle it? There were narcissists in his day too. They called them the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So let's just talk about what is a narcissist, right? Because you hear that term thrown out a lot, but many people really don't have a deep understanding of what that actually is, right? But there's nothing new under the sun. I'm not sure if they called it narcissism back in the day, but it definitely has all of the bearings of it. A narcissist is someone that is always finding judgment, criticism with another person. They're always easily able to find everybody else's faults, but they can never take ownership of their own. But they're quick to point the finger, right? The other side of narcissism is the woe is me attitude. Like, oh, I'm the victim. Everybody's against me. Look what they did to me. And they kind of sulk and pity themselves. And drama goes everywhere the narcissist goes. There's not a lot of peace when you're dealing with a narcissist because there's always an issue because they are there. There's the factor that they are in the equation, and as long as they're there and those things are not healed within inside of them, there will always be some sort of drama that follows them. So those are just a few signs of a narcissist. Now, how did Jesus handle the narcissist behavior from the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Because they often sought Jesus out. They would go and follow him and seek him out and watch him teach and watch him do miracles and signs and wonders. And then they would pick it apart, right? That's what they did. They would find judgment. They would be hypocritical. They were always looking for a way to catch him slipping, right? But how did Jesus handle them? In the Bible, he tells us in Matthew 10, he says, in Matthew 10, I believe it is, it says, he gives us the script, so to speak, of how to handle when we go and we share the gospel and it's not received. Let me read it to you. It says in verse 11, and into whosoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and there abide till you go thence. And when you come into a house, salute it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come unto it. But if it be not worthy, let your peace return to you. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when ye depart out of that house or that city, shake off the dust off your feet. For verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. And he's saying, look, I'm going to send you 2 by 2. You have to judge whether these people are worthy. So what does that look like in modern day society, like every day? Like maybe you send a message, maybe you send text, maybe you post a Facebook scripture or Instagram or TikTok sharing the gospel, and you send it to those who you think would receive it, but they are like crickets. They don't ever have a word or a response for the word. But if you send them a TikTok of something crazy, or if you send them a message that doesn't have anything to pertain to the word, then they'll respond. These are signs that these are the type of people that just don't have the ability to receive the word. And this can be believers. I had someone send a Dear Ruby question, and she said, I do this, I send this, and it's not the world that really opposes me. Sadly, it's other believers who often snub or don't receive the word from me. And you have to still do what the word says. You've done your part. You've been the messenger. You've put the word out. They didn't have the ability to receive it. So you have to just learn not to take offense to it, but to shake the dust off. Shake it off, child of God. Keep going and keep doing what you're doing, because you are going to make a difference in someone else's life. It's just not that person's not able to receive. And while that can be hurtful, don't take it personal, okay? Keep going, because he said this will happen, right? They'll have to answer to God, not you. You're not their judge. All right, and so again, he just teaches us how to handle adversity, because these Pharisees and these Sadducees, they were constantly trying to find fault. A lot of people say, well, Jesus, he turned tables. Yes, he did. Jesus called out the Pharisees and Sadducees, and I will talk about that. But the reason why Jesus got so upset in the temple that day is because they were merchandising the gospel. They were doing it to gain money for themselves. And Jesus says that we are a house of prayer. My temple temple is a house of prayer, but yet you have made it a den of thieves. And so we have to be careful when we're sharing the gospel. We see a lot of people want to put a price tag on the gospel. And he's saying, no, we are houses of prayer. So that's a topic all by itself. And I don't want to get into that today, but that's why he was so enraged, because they were making the house that was supposed to be a prayer house, they had turned it into merchandising, selling the gospel. Okay. All right. What I want to get back to, though, is that, when Jesus called out the Pharisees, he did it because they were constantly seeking him. He didn't go to their place trying to bring them down and expose them, but they came to him and they were constantly trying to find flaws. And if you poke the bear enough, guess what? You're going to get it. And this is what Jesus did in Matthew 23. He called them out. He read them for filth. Here it goes. It says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel." He's saying, you're so blind, right? You should know that the weightier matters. You should be showing grace, mercy, faith, and righteous judgment, right? But here you are swallowing a gnat, and you just gonna let a camel just ride right on in, right? And he's saying, you are blind guys. You are foolish. You can expose and point the flaws. You can be such a hypocrite, which a narcissist is. They're so readily available to point out the flaws in others, but they cannot even examine themselves. And child of God, I'm telling you, we have to know the times and seasons we're in, and we have to be able to shift when God shifts. And one of the things that he's been saying, we are in the season of greater love, greater works. We have to be abounding in love and grace, because when God comes to examine the fig tree, he's going to look to see what fruit, if any, is on that tree. So we cannot get distracted. We have to know the times and the season. This is a time of greater love. And I pray that you're able to seek God about these things, and he's able to give you understanding so you don't miss the wave and the move of God, because you're not in the right position. And so he calls them out. And there are times when God has to call things out. When Jesus did that, he had to say, you vipers, right? You brood, you're hypocrites. But Jesus, again, he didn't go looking to expose everyone. He is the light, and the light often will expose darkness on its own. Jesus just being in the environment, Jesus just being who Jesus was, meek, mild, gentle, he was able to be the light, and it exposed, unfortunately, but fortunately, right? It exposed the Pharisees and the Sadducees and that religious system for what it was. He didn't go and have to expose, Pharisees, Nahamani, he is doing this, and Pharisee, Namani, No. The light exposed who they truly were. And that's my point, you all. Sometimes we can get caught up in exposing everybody, thinking that it's going to change them. How many of you know you can expose all day long, but it doesn't mean that it's going to change the nature of a person or even that system? So you've got to go in where you're going to get your biggest buck for, right? Where are you going to get your biggest bang at? That is sharing the good news. That is sharing the gospel. That is you yourself being the light, right? And that's just what I want to remind you, to make sure you're using your time wisely, because Jesus came to serve, right? He didn't come to expose and condemn. He came to save. And a lot of times the Pharisees and Sadducees, they could not wrap that around their head. They saw Jesus eating with sinners, and they were like all up in an uproar. Why are you sitting there eating with sinners? He said, because I came for the lost, right? And we are to go out to a lost world too, and be the light, and not get sidetracked, right? With all of these other issues that can be a distraction. Yes, they are there, but how are you being aware of that? How is it going to shift or change anything? How is it, by you exposing that, is it really going to make a huge impact? Or is it better for you to use your time in other ways? These are things you've got to pray about, and you've got to let the Lord lead you. But I just wanted us to talk about relationships and setting boundaries, because even Jesus, often his response, more than not, his response was silence. You all know that when they tried to condemn him, when they mocked him, when they persecuted him, when they judged him unrighteously, he often just said nothing. And child of God, silence is a powerful weapon, and you've got to learn to use it. Now, there were other times where he had to distance himself, which he tells us in Matthew 10. We had to distance ourselves. You tried to share the gospel. You tried to. They didn't have the ability to receive it. And so you've got to cut them off. You can still pray for them if you choose, but move on, right? Because the gospel must continue to be preached. So I hope this series that I've been talking about this week has been very helpful about setting boundaries, knowing the difference between a classmate and a friend, knowing how to set proper boundaries, knowing how to walk in discernment. I hope these are all helpful tips in walking in a greater level. So that's all that I have to share with you all. Have a blessed day, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I love you guys.